You don't get that feeling like something's just off. Even if you can't like quite put your finger on it. That's how Creepypasta Radio's Kidnap starts. And let me tell you, it really gets under your skin.
Right.
We're diving deep into this story of Belle, a high school freshman
Right.
who stumbles into a nightmare, but, we're not just here for the chills,
Right,
right?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Kidnapped gives us this framework almost for understanding like the psychology behind these real life abductions, right? How do victims react in those moments of terror?
Yeah.
What tactics do the captors use to control, to manipulate?
And that's where things get really interesting because we're going to be kind of weaving in real life cases like Abby Hernandez, Cara Robinson, Elizabeth Fritz.
Right.
Those echoes of reality make the fictional stuff hit different.
Yeah.
So imagine this. Belle's first day of ninth grade.
Okay.
A day that should be all about, new notebooks and like awkward hellos in the hallway.
Right, right.
But there's this weight hanging over her.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How even before anything actually happens, the story sets up this sense of unease. Like Belle keeps seeing this beat up sedan around town,
Oh, yeah.
always lurking in the background, which plays on a very like primal fear. You know what I?
Oh, absolutely. It's like that car becomes this symbol, right? Like this constant reminder that something's not quite right. But Belle, being a teenager, she's trying to like brush it off, just like any of us might do.
That's the thing about our survival instincts, right? They often manifest as this vague unease, this sense that something is amiss, even if we can't articulate why. Think about it. You've probably felt it yourself at some point.
Totally. But then Creepypasta Radio
Yeah.
takes us to that moment after school.
Okay.
When you're waiting for your ride, that weird in-between time. Only this time, that creepy sedan rolls up and a guy gets out.
And this is where we see the manipulation begin, right? He puts on this act, all smiles and fake concern, offering her candy. It's like textbook in these cases.
Because who'd suspect someone offering candy, right?
Right.
But Belle, she hesitates. It's like she senses something's off, even if, logically, it seems harmless.
Absolutely. She tries to play it cool, tells him her mom's coming, but the episode does such a brilliant job with the sound design here. You hear the fear kind of creeping into her voice, even as she's trying to sound casual.
It's incredibly effective. And it highlights something so crucial about these situations. It's rarely like a stranger leaping from the bushes. It's this gradual erosion of safety, this slow build of pressure.
Precisely. Precisely. The captor often aims to disarm the potential victim, make them question their own instincts. And sadly, that hesitation, that attempt to be polite, it can create an opening.
And that's exactly what happens to Belle. One minute, she's standing on the sidewalk trying to act like, normal.
Right.
And the next, she's being dragged into that car.
Oh.
It's brutal, sudden, and the episode does not shy away from the terror of that moment.
Yeah. That sudden shift, that violation, that's what often defines the trauma for survivors, right? It shatters your sense of security, your belief in your own agency.
And from there, we're right there with Belle, trapped in that car. The way Creepypasta Radio describes the smells, the sounds, that feeling of being like completely cut off from the world, it's claustrophobic, even for us just listening.
It's effective. Sensory deprivation is a powerful, powerful tool for control.
Oh, yeah.
By stripping away familiar sights and sounds, the captor aims to disorient the victim, making them more reliant, more vulnerable.
And it works. They get to this bare room. She's tied up, terrified. But then the guy who calls himself Jose, he switches tactics. He brings her food, speaks softly, almost gently. It's like he's trying to be nice.
Ah, the kindly captor.
Yeah.
It's a tactic we see time and again in real-life cases, and it's often far more effective than outright brutality. It's about creating a bond. Well, a twisted kind of intimacy that makes escape seem even more impossible.
So it was less about Stockholm Syndrome like we always hear about.
Well, even the term Stockholm Syndrome is debated, right?
Yeah.
It's often misunderstood. It's not about victims suddenly falling in love with their captors,
Right.
but about finding ways to cope, to survive in a horrific situation,
So how does that play out with Belle? I mean, she's terrified, but she also starts like playing into Jose's hands a bit, right?
Yes. And this is where Kidnap gets even more unsettling because it's really mirroring the psychological complexities we see in these real cases. Like she tries to reason with him,
Yeah.
even asks about his motives.
It's like she's trying to understand him, to find like a chink in his armor, which is, I mean, that's both terrifying and incredibly savvy.
Exactly. It's a high-stakes gamble because any wrong move could be disastrous. But we see this in real-life situations, too. Captives trying to appeal to their captor's humanity, hoping for a moment of mercy.
And it's in those moments of like calculated risk that we see Belle's resilience shine through. Like when she gets the chance to write a letter to her family.
Oh, the letter. Such a simple act, yet so loaded with psychological weight, right?
Because, of course, Jose is watching her every move, reading every word. He thinks he's in control, dictating her every thought.
And this is where we see the power of, coded communication, something that might seem like a Hollywood trope, but actually has roots in real life survival stories.
Like, Belle starts writing about how much she loves Jose, how he's the only one who, like, really understands her. It's heartbreaking to listen to. But then you realize...
It's a facade. It's all a carefully constructed performance, designed to appease her captor, but potentially sending a message to anyone who might be listening.
And she slips in this detail about Robert, her boyfriend, from the first day of school, right? Right when Jose is, like, distracted.
Right.
It's subtle, but man, if her family puts it together...
It's a long shot, absolutely. But a glimmer of hope in a seemingly hopeless situation. And that's what makes these real-life cases so compelling, right? The way hope and despair are constantly intertwined.
But then the story takes this insane turn. One day, Jose is acting weird, agitated. Like you can hear it in his voice, this nervous energy. He tells Belle to stay put no matter what happens.
It's almost like a switch flips,
Right.
The illusion of control he so carefully constructed, it starts to crumble.
And then chaos, shouting, breaking glass. It's a raid. They finally caught up with him.
And for the listener, this moment is likely a rush of relief, right? Justice prevails.
Right.
But it's important to remember, for Belle, it's not that simple.
No, because the episode doesn't end there. It follows Belle through the rescue, the reunion with her mother. It's overwhelming, chaotic. But there's also this underlying sense of being, like, unmoored.
Exactly. Being rescued doesn't erase the trauma. In many ways, it marks the beginning of another journey, a long and difficult road to recovery.
It's like Kidnapped is saying, yeah, she's free, but what now?
Right.
We hear about the media frenzy, the pressure to, like, tell her story, but also the difficulty of returning to a life that's been completely upended.
And this is where the stories of Abby, Cara, Elizabeth, they become even more crucial because they remind us that survival isn't a single event. It's a process.
And just when you think Belle's story couldn't get any more intense, Creepypasta Radio hits us with another bombshell. She's pregnant.
Oh, wow. A gut-wrenching twist, and one that really underscores the long-term consequences of these types of crimes. It's a stark reminder of the abuse endured by real-life victims like Elizabeth Fritz, who suffered through years of captivity and forced pregnancies.
It's a lot to process, and the episode... It doesn't let up there. Remember how Jose always seemed so in control, almost like rehearsed in his actions?
Right.
Well, it turns out he had a past, a dark one.
Yeah.
The episode reveals this through this fictional news report, which I don't know, it feels eerily realistic.
It's a brilliant narrative device because it mimics how we often learn about these cases in real life, right? Through this detached lens of media reports. And suddenly we're hearing about Carlos Martinez, Jose's his real identity, right? His decades-long history of aliases and other crimes.
The report even mentions a wife and kids who had no clue about his double life.
Right.
Can you imagine the betrayal, the shattered reality they must face? It adds another layer of tragedy to the whole thing.
Absolutely. It highlights how these acts they ripple outward, right? Impacting not just the immediate victims, but families, communities, everyone who thought they knew this person.
It's a lot like when that news broke about Ariel Castro, right?
Right.
Holding those women captive for years, right? In their own neighborhood. People were horrified, but also left wondering, like, how could this happen right under our noses?
That's the question, isn't it? And while there are no easy answers, Creepypasta Radio does a great job of prompting reflection. The episode ends with this chilling line from that news report. It says, the story of Carlos Martinez serves as a stark reminder of the need for vigilance and compassion in the face of such profound adversity.
Which brings us back to you listening to this, because
Yeah.
while Kidnapped is a fictional story, it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the world, doesn't it?
It does, and it challenges us to move beyond just the surface level horror of
Right.
these crimes and consider the deeper psychological currents at play, right?
Huh.
The manipulation, the survival instincts, the
Yeah.
long road to healing, all of that.
So here's my final thought. We never really hear what happens to Belle after that news report, do we? Does she keep the baby? Does she find peace? We're left to wonder. But maybe that's the point.
Maybe because real life it doesn't always offer these neat resolutions. What we can take away are the stories of resilience, of hope, and the knowledge that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit can endure.
And sometimes that's all we can hope for. Thanks for diving deep with us. Stay curious, and until next time, take care of yourselves.